Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul Channel. I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I'd just like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance for you, Hashem. And this is the continuation of the Mesillas Yesharim, which is called The Way of the Upright, or the Path of the Just, from the Ramchal. That's Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. And this is from the Yafa edition from Art Scroll. And this is what the Sefer looks like if you haven't yet seen it, because this is actually part number 107, Baruch Hashem. Winding down, still not quite done because I'm keeping the videos now a little bit shorter and only doing them every other week. So continuing with chapter 26, the final chapter, on the trait of Kedushah, which is holiness. So continuing on from where I left off, and he says here, and we were talking about the qualities of the Kadosh we talked about last time. You can go back and check that out and different things related. So now he says that in chapter 16, the Ramchal explained that the deeds of a Tahor, which is one who has achieved the trait of Tahara, which is purity, are completely free of any ulterior motive. They are done only for the sake of the benefit they provide in the service of Hashem. Here Ramchal contrasts the physical actions of the Tahor with those of the Kadosh. Remember, the Tahor is the purity and the Kadosh is the holiness. Then whose actions are on an even higher spiritual plane. So you can now see the difference between the Tahor and the Kadosh regarding their relation to physical activity. With the Tahor, his material actions are for him nothing but unavoidable necessities. And he himself, in performing these actions, focuses only on their necessity, not on any personal gain or pleasure. As a result of this pure-mindedness, his actions are excluded from the negative category of material matters and remain pure. And the commentary here says, one who has reached the level of Tahara has escaped the harm that involvement with the material world often entails. All of his actions are considered to be pure and are in fact contributing elements of his service of Hashem. Since he does only what he must to survive and further his goal of serving Hashem. And in the beginning of chapter 16, note 7 there, it says where these concepts are explained at length. So again, you'd have to go back. I don't know where that is in the 107 videos, but okay. And also it says, see Ramchal's Ma'amar HaVikuach, which is printed in Sharei Ramchal, which I don't have, but that's what it says here. Okay. So meaning here it's saying, to just paraphrase, all his actions that he does is pure, so all his service is, everything he does, if it's necessity, it's just for out of necessity. He's not doing to have any pleasure out of it. Okay, and then it continues. However, even though the actions have no trace of negativity, they still have not reached the higher level of Kedushah. For despite the purity of such actions, if it were possible to exist without them, that would surely be better. Commentary here says that material actions, even if done in the purest way, are inherently non-spiritual. Involvement with them is no sin when done properly and can even be an element of one's service of Hashem, like we said in the previous note. However, at the time one is engaged in them, he lowers himself from a spiritual to a physical state. Thus, he would have been better off if he could have avoided them entirely and served Hashem without resorting to fulfilling physical needs, like was discussed in chapter 17. Ramchal contrasts this with actions performed on the higher level of Kedushah, in which even material actions become suffused with holiness, as he will now explain. So that's what they're saying. The difference is like with Tahara and with Kedushah. So now he's going to explain that more. And he goes on. He says, the Kadosh, however, who cleaves to his God always, and whose soul travels constantly among the concepts of true knowledge, suffused with love of his Creator and fear of him, is indeed considered as if he were walking before Hashem in the land of the living, which is the world to come, even while still here in this world. Meaning it's like he's here, but he's not here. Meaning he's already in the next world, in that sense. And commentary here says, one who has transcended physicality exists completely in a realm in which the true realities of the world are spiritual elements and not physical ones. The Kadosh can be said to be living not in the physical world, but among the spiritual concepts, which in Hebrew is called muskalos ha'amitios, of the way, and those are the spiritual concepts of the way of Hashem. He's thus described as a person physically occupying this lower world, but living as if he were in the world to come. A place designated for man's greatest attachment to his Creator. And also says, see chapter 1 with note 5. Again, I'm not going back there, so you'd have to go back and check where that is. Additional commentary says that Ramchal's language here is mirrored by the Chazon Ish in a letter called from the Igros, volume 1, 13. The person who merits true knowledge of Torah, meaning that the intellect that is infused in his soul, like a seed in the earth, has fused with wisdom and has become one with it. He walks among people and appears to those who see only externals as an ordinary human being. However, he is actually an angel who resides among mortals, but lives a life of spirituality and is exalted above every blessing and praise. The Torah scholar described here, whose soul, quote, has fused with wisdom, is constantly immersed in Torah thoughts, for his love of Torah does not allow him to be pulled away from it. So everything he does is always Torah. There's nothing but that in his sense of being. So by virtue of his, and I just added that, and the continuing commentary says, by virtue of his unceasing attachment to Hashem's word, he is constantly in a state of dveikus with Hashem, right? The clinging that was discussed in chapter 19. That says notes 116 to 120. And 120, sorry. And which, as the Ramchal has explained, is the essence of Kedushah. And also it says, see Ramban cited above in the insight to note 6. Okay, and then continuing on to finish up here, let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, so then it says, now the physical actions of this man, the Kadosh, are themselves holy because he himself is considered as a Mishkan and a Beis HaMikdash and an altar, as explained further below. Commentary here says that these 3 different places of worship represent various levels of Kedushah that a Kadosh may attain. Also says, see Iyunim of Rav Yecheskel Sarna for further discussion. And then he continues, Ramchal, this is in accordance with the dictum of the sages of blessed memory from Bereshis Rabbah 47:6, addressing the verse that states that after Hashem spoke to Avram, Hashem rose up from upon him. Okay, that was in Bereshis 35 verse 13. The verse in Hebrew, it's Vayal me'alav Elokim. The verse indicates that the Shekhinah had been resting, as it were, upon Avram himself. And the sages explained, this teaches that the patriarchs of the Jewish people are themselves the chariot of the Shekhinah. Commentary here says that a chariot is the vehicle upon which the king sits. And since it is ornate and resplendent, it is reflective of the royal majesty. Unlike a throne which is confined within the 4 walls of a palace, a chariot brings the royal presence to the masses. Thus, the concept of Hashem's, quote, chariot means on a simple level that he chooses to manifest his presence on earth by, quote, resting it, as it were, on a great and holy person, whose sanctity and elevated level of spirituality and conduct gives people an inkling of the greatness of the king. Blessed be he. Also says, see Maharal Gur Aryeh, Bereshis 17:2, and Bach, Orachaim 47:2. Okay, and then it continues. And the sages similarly stated, see Rashi to Bereshis 17:22. The righteous are themselves the chariot of the Shekhinah. And here the commentary says that for discussion of a distinction in this regard between the patriarchs and other tzaddikim, it says see the Maharal and Rabbeinu Bachya to Bereshis 30-10, and for elaboration see Michtav Me'Eliyahu, volume 2, pages 160 to 165. And then to finish up here for today, this analogy is appropriate because the Shekhinah rests upon them, just as the Shekhinah rested in the Beis HaMikdash. And here commentary says that is just as the Beis HaMikdash is this designated dwelling place, as it were, of the divine presence, so too the Shekhinah rests upon righteous people themselves. And thus, since they are like the Beis HaMikdash and the altar, the food that they eat is like an offering brought up upon the fires of the altar. Commentary here says that this concept will be explained further below, and we'll get to that, BeEzrat Hashem. We're just going to stop here, and I hope and pray that we'll all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and the rebuilding of our final and everlasting Beis HaMikdash. Amen, and thanks for watching.